Urantia Book. Even the major and minor sectors of Orvonton are, to us, clearly distinguishable. But it is not so easy to identify the physical boundaries of the local universe.
Yeah, so now given the fact that I've walked you this far, if a minor sector is a galaxy, if a major sector is a whole lot of galaxies, you can see why they are clearly distinguishable, because astronomy takes great pictures. Hubble was taking great pictures of galaxies and clusters of galaxies. But where it's referring to local universes, well, you know, if you're looking at just a fuzzy little group of stars within any given galaxy, a star cloud, well, that's not going to be easy to identify.
Salvington, the headquarters of Nebadon, is situated at the exact energy mass center of the local universe. But your local universe is not a single astronomic system, though a large system does exist at its physical center.
So again, a star cloud, it can be many groups of open clusters of stars, all gravitationally bound together, but it's really hard to look up there and to take a photograph and to say it starts here and ends here. Not possible.
Such is the constitution of the local star cloud of Nebadon, which today swings in an increasingly settled orbit around the Sagittarius center of that minor sector of Orvonton to which our local creation belongs.
So we're really back to where I was showing you that image of a star cloud hanging on the edge of the Andromeda galaxy. And it's the same image, that our local star cloud of Nebadon is a grouping of stars hanging on the edge of the Milky Way in rotation, drifting around the Sagittarius arm, this great huge arm, one of who, you know, so we saw that image of two great arms, two great stellar coils, and it fits very nicely. So finally, the idea here is that if the Milky Way is one minor sector, again, of 1,000 minor sectors that make up Orvonton, then Orvonton would contain 1,000 galaxies. Coincidentally, the size of our Virgo supercluster that we are on the edge of, which is also watch-like in shape, consists of about 1,000 galaxies. And as huge as that is, it is simply just 1/200,000,000th of the known universe. Okay, so it's huge. Our Virgo supercluster is huge, and yet it's still just 1/200,000,000th of the known universe, and that fits the Urantia Book suggestion that only a tiny, tiny part of the master universe is inhabited as the grand universe. Remember, the Urantia Book gives us this image of the grand universe. It has 7 superuniverses, is inhabited, but it's tiny because the so-called outer space levels are just absolutely enormous. And so the idea that our grand universe might be just, you know, fractions of a millionth of the entire universe fits really well. So here we're back again here to this earlier image of a star cloud in rotation around a galaxy. So it's not so easy to identify the physical borders. And so the thousands of stars comprising a system and a constellation then would be astronomically indistinguishable. So constellations and systems would be just, you couldn't simply take them apart astronomically any more than you could take apart the local universe. So I can't really speak to how, you know, where you would go looking for a constellation grouping of stars, because it would be almost impossible to try to pick that one out. So again, we're back to a slide we saw in the very beginning where we're equating Urantia Book terms with what astronomy knows about. And so think of the master universe as equivalent to the universe as we currently think about it. The super universe is equivalent to a supercluster. A major sector would be simply a cluster of galaxies. So we are part of the Virgo cluster of galaxies on the edge of the Virgo supercluster of galaxies, and a minor sector again is equivalent to the Milky Way galaxy and on down solar system and the Earth. So I've had to build you all the way up through the talk to get to that so that it feels good. Now what I want to do is address a couple of minor problems that the Urantia Book speaks about and how to see them in the light of the history of the appearance of the Urantia Book. So the classical one is, why is it quoted that the Andromeda galaxy is 1,000,000 light years away when astronomy says it's more than 2,000,000 light years away?
Andromeda, which is outside the inhabited superuniverse, is very active. This far distant nebula is visible to the naked eye, and when you view it, pause to consider that the light you behold left those distant suns almost 1 million years ago.
So here's the problem term, 1 million years. That's the problem. Okay, here's the architecture of the universe expressing the science of the times.
Architecture of the universe. Silhouetted against the sky in the constellation Andromeda is a tiny patch of light, hardly visible to the eye. It is the great nebula of Andromeda, one of the giants of the universe, a thing so large that light takes 50,000 years to cross it, but so far away that this light takes nearly 1 million years to reach us.
So the Revelatory Commission was constrained. They really had to use not just the concepts of the time, but the science of the times. And so that's where the million years comes from. From a Urantia Book reader's points of view, I want to point out this image. Again, Andromeda outside the inhabited super universe does not put it outside of, that simply doesn't put it into the outer space levels. But I will say this, that right now astronomy looks at Andromeda as being an extremely hot galaxy. And right now, part of the theorizing about life in other galaxies is that life can only occur in habitable zones of galaxies, where there are settled star systems that can support it. Andromeda, even from the point of view of science, is thought to be a pretty messy place in terms of the possibility for possible life because of all the activity that's going on in Andromeda. So again, Andromeda is our nearest neighbor. That doesn't mean that it's out in the outer space universes from this phraseology. I'm just going to quickly show you a bit of the scale here. Here's Andromeda sitting over here. Here is our Milky Way galaxy. The distance they give is 2.65 million light years. So if we're trying to figure out how big a local group is, the local group term actually is not a Urantia Book term, it is an astronomy term. The local group of galaxies embraces Andromeda and a few other smaller galaxies, but the Milky Way and Andromeda dominate the local group, but this is still too far small a size to be the major sector of 100 minor sectors. But note the number here, 2.65. What would the Urantia Book have quoted to come up with an accurate number? It said 1 million, but if it had said, say, 2 million or 2.4, which was accurate as of 10 years ago, and now it's 2.65, what's the accurate number? You see, the Urantia Book number, whatever number they used, would have been wrong at some point in time, because it's always being corrected. If we look on a larger scale of 100, 200 million light years in this grouping, we start to see galaxy clusters and clusters of galaxies. These are the building blocks of a universe. In Urantia Book terms, the Virgo major sector and somewhat beyond the Virgo major sector would be the building block for a superuniverse. Go ahead.
Superclusters of galaxies only approximate a superuniverse. The Urantia Book. The 7 superuniverses are not primary physical organizations. Nowhere do their boundaries divide a nebula family. Neither do they cross a local universe, a prime creative unit. Each superuniverse is simply a geographic space clustering of approximately 1/7 of the organized and partially inhabited post-Havona creation.
So here's a problem. I'm asking you to take your idea of a superuniverse and associate a superuniverse with a supercluster of galaxies. But the Urantia Book is saying here that that is even somewhat problematic because it's more of an administrative issue that the Urantia Book says when they're talking about 1/7 of an energy grouping is comprising a superuniverse. So in this graph, the 7 superuniverses might be thought to occupy the region of superclusters, and it's really not easy to see so much on this slide unless you get a very good look from Virgo towards Hercules. Again, outer space levels would be way beyond this region. They would be much farther out in space. So again, on large scale, superclusters of galaxies are the building blocks, in Urantia Book terms, superuniverses of the grand universe and somewhat beyond. We're starting to begin to see the edges of what the Urantia Book says are the first outer space level at the scale. Here's what's problematic. This is what's problematic. This slide, with all its arrows pointing in all these directions, and again the arrows are trending together. These arrows are representations not of stars in motions, but of galaxies in motions. So these are huge collections of galaxies in motion together on this slide. And again, this was not, they couldn't even begin to document this sort of motion, this large-scale motion of galaxies until the 1980s.
Orvonton, the seventh superuniverse, swings on between superuniverses 1 and 6, having not long since, as we reckon time, turned the southeastern bend of the superuniverse space level.
It's really a fun story that the Urantia Book tells. It gives directions, and it gives a north and a south, and it's clearly pretty fanciful, but the reality is, at the time of the 1920s and 30s, even Einstein and Hubble thought of the universe as being a pretty homogeneous place. It was known that galaxies were everywhere and that everything in the universe was expanding away from everything else. But it was still thought to be a pretty homogeneous, smooth-looking universe. And now we know that it's far, far, far more chaotic than anything those early physicists and astrophysicists would have assumed. And this graph of the motion of galaxies clearly expresses it. But the Urantia Book told us the story, and it said superuniverses. So we have 1,000 galaxies within a superuniverse, and these 1,000 galaxies are in motion with other groups of thousands of galaxies, and it's talking about large-scale motion long before there was any suggestion that anything like that was happening.